You are watching Stellar.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to our Stellar Expert Chat for, what is today? Today is March 3rd, right? March 3rd, 2021. It's rainy here in Southern California, which is unusual, but kind of nice. And we are here today to have a great conversation about the success story that is the Smuin Ballet. And I have with me a couple of guests that I want to introduce you to right now from Smuin Ballet. Put my glasses on. First, I'd like to introduce she's the artistic director she's served as the artistic director of Smuin Contemporary Ballet since 2007. From 2008 to 2014, she was the executive director. She's a founding member of Smuin Ballet, principal dancer for more than 12 years, and worked with Michael Smuin, the founder of the company. And in the midst of all the time, 25 years on stage in US and Europe, television, film. There's a science fiction story that maybe she'll tell you. She's created her own vision for the company while maintaining the Smuin legacy, and expanded on the company's repertoire by commissioning 18 world premieres. That's a lot of world premieres. Among other things, time to talk to her. Please welcome Celia Fushil. Celia.
Hi there. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. And not just Celia, we also have Jason Nairn, who's the patron services manager at Smuin. He has been helping live entertainment patrons with their ticketing needs since 2001. Hardly seems like he's old enough to have been working in this since 2001. Most recently with before Smuin with the San Francisco Ballet. I was just telling him, it's raining here in Southern California. He grew up here and moved up there for some reason, went to Berkeley, and we are delighted to have you. Jason, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
The other thing we were talking about just before we came online is the fact that Smuin has been working with Gold Star since 2003, which is unbelievable. But it's just a real pleasure to have you guys with me today.
Thank you. Great to be here, Jim.
Well, so today we are going to. It's really interesting. So today I want to talk about a little bit of a change that we've got coming up, because we're going to present the consumer sentiment data. We have not done this. I don't think we've done this year so far, this calendar year. So there will be some new data that I'll be sharing with you guys. And then the other thing I want to mention is that going forward, we're going to have two different series. We're going to have one, the Stellar series, that's going to focus on people like Celia and Jason who are having success with online events and how they're having that success and getting some really useful information to you. And then the other one is going to be a Gold Star series, which is going to be focused at this point, and I know all of us are excited about this, it's going to be focused on getting back to in-person events, which is also very exciting. So we're going to focus on that. We're going to do the consumer sentiment updates in that session. We'll tell you more about this as we go, but today's sort of the last one that's sort of hybrid that brings them both together. But anyway, are you guys ready to talk about this new data that we've got?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, and just chime in, just at any point. And by the way, if you have a question or a comment, just put it in the chat, and if I pick it up, I will ask it, and if not, we'll just we'll all get there. So let's start with this is the data that came out of the mid-February survey. We have been doing it twice a month since May of 2020. Let me just give you, for those of you who might be new to this information, we call this the Gold Star Consumer Sentiment Survey Project. And the reason that we think of it that way is that regardless of what the law is, regardless of what's allowed in a given territory or anything else, what's really going to determine when in-person events can be done in the same way that they were done before the pandemic is what people think and how people feel. So what we've been trying to do is keep our finger on the pulse of how actual ticket buying consumers feel about going back to live events in person from nearly the start of the pandemic. And the second goal is to share the information that we get with anybody and everybody who's interested, especially Gold Star and Stellar partners in the industry as a whole. So that's what we've been doing. We've done this, as I said, twice a month since May, as large scale surveys so that we can get a broad perspective on it, so that we can reach all ages. And I think we're doing 17 major metros and then a kind of catch-all for everybody that's not in one of the major 17 metros that we name. And big enough groups that we can confidently say by age, by geography, that what we're putting forward is generally pretty good information. Who we hear from is frequent event goers. So in this particular version of the survey, 68% of the people who responded to this say that normally, sort of pre-pandemic, they would go out at least once or twice a month, which is a lot. So that, as you know, that's a pretty frequent event goer. And there were 1,928 respondents in this survey. So that's pretty nice, meaty chunk that makes our data pretty valid. So having said all that, the first number that the main number that we report each time is the number that we call the return readiness score. So for those of you who have not been tracking along with this for the last 7-8 months or so, what we do is we ask people, we give them a little slider bar on their screen, from 0 to 100, how ready are you if there were events being produced right now and it was legal and so forth and so on, how willing would you be to go to a live event in person with really no specific restrictions? If they answer 0, that means like, hell no, there's no way I would go. And I guess, but logically, if they answer 100, the answer is hell yes, I'd go right now. So somewhere in between. So what we're doing here is pulling together those responses and coming up with an average. And the average this time is 45. Now, some of you who aren't following this on a month-in, month-out basis might think, is that a good number? Is it a bad number? Well, what I can tell you is this is the highest number that we've registered so far since May. This is the highest number. I think we had 44 back in maybe June when there was a very brief window of optimism. And then we've had numbers that go as low as, I believe 32 was our lowest number. This is the highest number we've had. It's up 5 from the one that we did at the beginning of February. And I'm interested in this. I think I'm just real curious to see where it goes from here. Celia, Jason, what do you guys think?
I'm sure that this is, with news of the new administration ramping up efforts to vaccinate everyone, I think we're going to see everyone's comfort level increasing. I'm curious to know if you've polled theaters about their HVAC improvements and if that would help aid in people's comfort levels, knowing that systems have been put in place to filter the air more frequently. But this is really encouraging that it's gone up 5 points already in a month. So great.
Yeah, actually, the HVAC thing is really interesting. We had a whole conversation, I think it was in July maybe, about HVAC systems, and kind of got into some nitty gritty about the negative pressure and do you do it from the floor up or from the ceiling down? Have you guys done anything in this area with your facility?
Well, we have in our dance studios, different areas filter the air more frequently. High traffic areas like our lobby is filtered 8 times every hour. Wow. The office space, I think it's twice every hour. And then the studios quite frequently 4 or 5 times every hour, so that the air is constantly being refreshed. And then there are ceiling fans. I know that we can always get into prickly customers in the theaters as well. If it gets too cold or too hot in a theater, there's right. Concerns about that. But I think knowing that the air has been, maybe there are air purifier type things that have, that will become available for large spaces. I've also heard about a misting, some kind of misting. I don't know what solution it is that's supposed right. to be antiviral. So
yeah, all of that's, it's really going to be interesting to see how that plays out. What do you think, Jason? You think that's going to be something that front of the house people are going to want to, because there are questions that come up, right, as people experience that.
Yeah, I think the vaccines are the game changer. I think once that's set in and people feel secure, that at that point they'll be ready to come back and not worry as much about anything else. So.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. So 45 is the best number we've had, and it's a jump from the last one. I look at this, though, my benchmark, and 50 represents kind of the, is it more yes or more no? And we're still in the more no than yes camp here, and I'm not surprised by that. But yeah, so I don't know. I guess if I had to guess, there's going to be another survey that goes out. I think later this week, so we'll have new data in a week or so. I think we're going to see another jump. We might actually hit 50 for the first time in the next little set, but we'll see. let's look at the breakdown of this. So it's one thing to tell you an average. It's another thing to kind of show you where people stand. So what you're looking at here, if you can't see the details, is basically buckets. So on the left of the screen, what you see is people who fell into the 0 to 10 bucket. Like when they're answered from 0 to 100, the 0 to 10 buckets on the left, the 91 to 100 buckets on the right. You can still see that the 0 to 10 bucket is by far the biggest. What's new in this, if you've been tracking this data for a while, what's new in this is that the 91 to 100 bucket is now the second largest. That was not always the case. I think that's the one that's likely to grow faster and faster than everything in between. So very much bimodal here, polar responses here, and a little bit in the middle. Probably no surprise to you guys.
So what we're looking at here, Jim, these are just the numbers of respondents?
In these categories, yeah.
Okay.
That fell into this, that section of it. So this is a histogram, which means everybody who answered 0 to 10 is in one bucket, and then all the way over to 91 to 100. So this, this is the difference between an average and the overall respondent. So you could have, part of the reason the average is as low as it is because there are so many people in the very low category that it pulls the average down. If you looked at the median, for example, would be a little higher than the average in this case. So, all right, so let's see, what else do we have? So this is actually a graph that shows that indeed this is the highest number that we've ever seen. But what's really interesting about this too is how consistent it's been for this entire time, really. I mean, it's bopped around between the low 40s and the mid 30s, and that's about it. That's about as far as it's gone. And it varies by region, but as you can see, it's the we've had by much.
Yeah, you can see it really follows when cases of the coronavirus were at their peak with those, the summer numbers were very high, and then again after the holidays.
Definitely, no question about it. Now, this one is this is the breakdown by metro, and as Jason and I were saying, they're in the Bay Area, and the Bay Area is always near the bottom of the list, and this is no exception. This Las Vegas data is really high. I think we had a relatively small sample there, so I'm going to put an asterisk on this number to say I wouldn't take the 75 too seriously, but still, Las Vegas is almost always the highest, and that shouldn't surprise anybody. It's a whole city built on the idea of taking risk. So, hey. Phoenix and Sacramento in the 60s, I think those are strong indicators of where the sentiment is there. San Diego, Houston, Dallas, all 50 plus, and then non outside the 17 major metros that we survey, 49. So that's kind of a mixed bag of different things. Atlanta and LA at 47. I think that's an all-time high for LA. I'm not sure about Atlanta. New York, I think that's also an all-time high at 47. And then we kind of go down from there. Miami, Philly, Chicago, and then we get to what's of particular interest to you guys, but just in general, the ones that tend to be at the bottom, which are the Bay Area ones, San Jose and San Francisco, and then Boston, Seattle, and Washington, still in the 30s. Does that seem right to you guys who live in the Bay Area? Does it still feel like an accurate representation of where things are?
I do think so. Yeah, from what I hear from most of my patrons, a few of them are ready to go back to the theater right now, but the majority are enjoying our online performances, and will feel more comfortable for quite a while doing it that way. Yeah.
I'm always fascinated by these differences in geography.
It is very interesting, and I don't know if there's a correlation between how hypervigilant our governments have been, local and state, in California and in the Bay Area specifically. I mean, we were the first area to shut down and require the stay-at-home order last March. We are coming up on a year. So I don't know if that's a repercussion from that people are saying it mustn't be safe enough yet because we still have these pretty strict guidelines in place.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to be feeling safe until they tell me it's safer to go. So I wonder if there's a correlation with areas that that had either strict guidelines or conversely, those areas, I'm interested that New York is still having a little bit of trepidation, because my son lives in Brooklyn, and I know that it was fairly traumatizing to walk around Brooklyn and parts of New York and see those massive refrigerated cars, knowing what they were for. And it was so impactful. And so I wonder if areas that were really hard hit are there's still some fear there.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, as I say, I think this may be the highest we've seen in New York, but I think there's a long way to go. It's and it breaks down, in other ways. So let's take a look at this. We've been saying this from the start. It may not even really, this is a question we started asking back in May. And I think if we were to do it again, we would refine this to say something like, how many people are there and how crowded is it, as opposed to just the size of the venue. But people still have this residual feeling that a small venue might be safer. And obviously, you see things like, an outdoor football game where you've got a quarter of the crowd and everybody's pretty spread out. We now know with a lot of confidence that's pretty safe, rather than packing a 200-seat club, right? Really, it's about the distance and the number of people and that the air circulation. But nonetheless, I mean, we still continue to see that reticence on on large venues as opposed to small venues. Weird, huh?
Right, it is. It's fairly understandable. What I'm wondering, Jim, is have you considered adding a question to your survey about the length of a show? Like, would people feel more comfortable watching a 1-hour performance that has no intermission? It's in and out. There's no bathroom breaks that we have to worry about crossing closer than 6 feet to somebody in a line for the restroom, or hanging out in the lobby for a beverage. But I'm wondering if people will feel better easing back in with a 1-hour show before getting into a 2-hour. Our shows are usually 2 hours.
Yeah, that's a good question. We haven't asked that, but that's a fascinating idea.
I'm curious.
Let's note of that. Yeah. So venue size, I think we still ask this because we're curious to see where it goes, but I think we all know that the age difference here is really important. I mean, this is a major driver of people's susceptibility to the virus and all. So it is no surprise, and it has not been a surprise, that the younger people and middle-aged people are more willing at every point, even when it's been low, they've been more willing than people over 65 to go. But the jump here for people 65 and up is pretty solid. That's a 6-point jump from the last survey. Probably no surprise. They're predominantly the ones getting vaccinated, so maybe they're feeling more confident on that basis. But the 35s and under, they're just game. They're ready. I feel like it's like a fence holding back stampede of horses. But we'll see. And of course, the middle-aged people are cocky. They're thinking like, I'm still young. I can do it. These numbers are all going up. I think it's going to be really interesting to see as the older people get vaccinated at first, if these numbers get closer together. This is about as far they've stayed about this far apart. I'm wondering, if these numbers will get closer together.
That will be interesting.
You were talking about the difference between organizations and their patron bases, right? Like this could be really, really important. This aspect of it.
Yes. Absolutely. Obviously, as a ballet company, our demographic tends to run a little older, so we definitely take a look at that 65 and up before we make any big decisions on anything.
And what have you heard from patrons in terms of this? Is there anything you've kind of taken on board as input or their thoughts about going back to the venue?
Yeah, again, going back to the vaccine, I'm feeling that I'm hearing from patrons, they're getting vaccinated, they got their appointments, they're now asking when they can come back to the theater. Awesome.
They're like, hey, I'm good. So, let me in.
Right. And I think, that the group here that's showing a comfort level, the 35 and under group, I think part of that too is that as the stats come out about the virus and we see that the younger people are less impacted than the older people. And so they're feeling not as risk averse. And so they're just frustrated. Like, okay, it's been a year of this. We haven't died yet. We haven't gotten sick. If we got sick, it was mild. Of course, there are exceptions, but if you look at the number of people who have passed away and the ages of those people, that's why I think we see the younger crowd just being frustrated. Like, okay, we've done this for a year. Let's get on with life. And I think Jason's right. It's all about the vaccine. I talked to a friend of mine today, and she's in her early 80s, and she's just like, I am so relieved now. She's willing to go on a transit for seniors in her housing area, which she was unwilling to do before that, to be with other people, just trying to minimize her interactions at all. But I think once people know that, yes, I may get the coronavirus, but it's not going to kill me. I can still do this. And I think we're going to see mask wearing in theaters for a very long time. That element, I think, will continue. Because I don't know, are we going to ask patrons to prove that they've been vaccinated? Then you've got the whole anti-vaxxers. And so I think we're going to see masks in theaters for quite some time.
Could be right. I mean, that's going to be interesting. There's going to come a point where people probably won't. They'll be like, come on, why are we doing that? You know what I mean? Like, it'll be the combination of vaccinations and are there cases, right? If there's no cases and most of us are vaccinated, why are we doing it? So it'll be an interesting, but probably you're right, gradual process of that. Anyway, all right, interesting, cool. We asked this question. It's kind of a vague question, but we wanted to kind of just put it out there. So we say, like, suppose that the venue, if you were talking about not just events in general, but if you knew that distancing, cleanliness, that kind of thing, if you know all those policies were being followed, how would that change the answer you gave before? And so that always improves it some. In this case, it improved it from a 45 to a 52. And what we've seen is that it's been a little bump, but it wasn't like, oh, and this is your point, right? Like, that's not going to change my mind about going, at least not very much. But I think this is the highest number we've seen on this number, and this number is also the highest that we've seen, which is if the event were outdoors or you didn't have to be seated next to each other, you had more space, museums, aquariums, that kind of thing. What's your willingness, as opposed to like a seated, theater, something like that. And this number is also our all-time high, and it's up 9 points to 65. So this, I think, is like, you're kind of in business, I think, at 65. I think this is a thing. You can work with this.
Yeah, that's great news.
I would say so, yeah. And then if you look at it by age and you look at it by, other geographies, those numbers are going to probably be in the 70s or even higher. So this feels like the first workable number that we've really seen on a broad scale. So do outdoor events. I mean, that's certainly, I know it's happening, but I mean, I think it's worth thinking perhaps more seriously about that, right? You guys, and you've done some of that. We did, Jim. We actually last summer purchased a portable sprung floor so that we would have this option. Yeah. And we ended up setting up on a street in San Francisco that was able to be closed in front of a restaurant on a Sunday. And they borrowed a stage from a hotel, since they're not having events. And so we were elevated off of the street, and then we put our staging on top of it, our flooring. And the restaurant used our email patron base, and I don't know, what are we, Jason, at 13,000 or something in our patron base. And we did 3 dinner seatings. They had about 36 tables with varying 2 tops, 4 tops, some 6 tops. But the 36 tables, the 3 seatings of all of these tables sold out in under 24 hours. People were so excited to be able to see live performance. And this was it had been 7 months since we had performed. So it was in October, and people were literally weeping. They just said, we just did not know when we were going to see live performance again. And they couldn't believe it. They were so thrilled. So I think that as the comfort level increases and the vaccination level increases, I think people are going to come back. Well, and I think this shows that the door is open for that, for sure. We've been asking this question for, I think, at least 6 months. Would you be willing to wear a mask? This number has stayed in the high 80s or low 90s the whole time, down just a little bit. And those could be people who've been vaccinated. So like, you know what, I'm done with that. But, and Jason, I know your nightmare is the people on the left-hand side of this graph that, the ones who are like, no.
Yeah, I'm not terribly worried about that so much in the Bay Area.
True. We've had some people from other markets that have been like, I know this is going to be an issue when it happens. This is a question we added somewhat recently. What's your feeling about vaccines? When will you take it? One option was only after I've seen a lot of other people take it and have no problem. That's still 12%. But this number is the biggest that it's been, which is as soon as it's made available to me at 51%. So that's where I am. I'm definitely in that bucket. And to your point, Celia, I won't get vaccinated is only 5%. And then can't get vaccinated is smaller than that. And I have already been vaccinated. Now, obviously, that number is skewed in our survey compared to the public at large by just the age demographic of who answered this particular survey. But it's still a good number. So if this were applied across the country, this would be a very positive sort of set of outcomes, I think.
Absolutely.
I think showgoers are more likely to be on board with vaccinations than the public at large, but hopefully not too different, I would hope. This was, hey, how do you feel about going out to these events once you've had the vaccine? This number is at 61. It's took a big jump from the last survey. I guess as more people get the vaccine, they're sort of feeling better and better about it. This is exciting. I think this number is going to continue to go up and go up fast. And last but not least, we always ask the question, how much are you looking forward to getting back into the venue and seeing these things again? 91, it's always high. It's up 1. I think this is about where it's always at, 90, 91, somewhere in there. So we do that mostly to make ourselves feel a little bit better about that. But that's the survey for this time. Any comments before we dive into you guys and your success with online events?
No, I think that's great. There's a very small segment of our population, our demographic, that comes to see our shows. I've talked to a couple of people who have said, it's so convenient for me to stay home and get to watch all of this right here from home. And I don't have to get in my car and deal with traffic and walking and the parking garage and this and that. So I do hope that, the best things that we can produce will still be live performances. But I think there's going to be an element of virtual presentations moving forward.
Of course, I agree with you. I think it's a new medium with a lot of opportunity, and I think anybody who's stuck in a kind of either or mindset on this is looking at it the wrong way. And I'm always here to help them think about how to look at that. It is a great tool that can do a lot of things for you. But I want to dive in. Maybe you guys could. You guys were doing free content, Vimeo, that kind of thing at one point in the pandemic, and then you made a pivot. Why don't you just walk us through the story of that, and then we'll get into questions, and we'll just branch off from there in the conversation.
Well, I can start out, Jason, but I'm sure I'm going to need you to jump in quickly. Of course, initially, we didn't know how long this was going to go on. And if anyone had said, okay, you're going to be doing this for maybe 2 years, maybe we would have all jumped ship. I don't know. But without having that knowledge of how long this was going to go on, we thought our main objective was staying in contact with our patrons. And we did not want to lose our core audience. So that was really our primary objective. So initially, we were staying in touch with people. Like you said, we were having these weekly hump day ballets, and they were just simply a straight screening of an archival footage of one of our, wide angle performances. It was nothing more elaborate than that, but people were enjoying that. And we started throwing in the dancers that were involved in the ballet, doing a little 2-minute introduction so that it felt like there was some sort of live component. Obviously it was not live, but it was, there was some immediacy there that our patrons could enjoy hearing from one of our dancers. And it's one of the things that we pride ourselves on at Smune, is that people get to know our company as individuals, and we talk about the Smune family. And really, it's the larger patron base that feels like they matter to us, and they do. And they have a chance to get to know the dancers. The dancers come out to the lobby, and they have these receptions after performances, and they can actually speak to a dancer, and they feel like they're meeting a rock star. So it's this engagement that is really, really immediate that they have. And so we didn't want to lose that facet of it. But then going on into this pandemic, we realized we needed to find a way to monetize it. So that was really the crux of the situation. And that's when Jason and our managing director started to look for other ways that we could present our work, and we would create new content but we had to find a way to monetize it.
Yeah. It's that whole thing that I heard a lot at the beginning of this, which was engagement. And now when I hear people talk about engagement, I kind of feel like they're chickening out in some way. If it never gets past the idea of engagement, there's plenty of engagement to be gained, but there's a lot more too.
Jason, do you want to add anything to that and the decisions that we?
Yeah, walk us through it. I think
Yeah.
people who are listening in probably just want to hear a little bit of the backstory and the decision-making process that got you where you ended up, and all about what happened then.
Yeah, well, what Celia said, we had a bunch of archival material that we could present, but we did know that we needed something new. We needed something for our dancers to do. And with our sprung floor, we were able to do a filming outdoors. And in that way, then at that point, it was my job to find a way to get it to people without just giving it away. And yeah, that's where Stellar came in. I researched a few different companies, and with Stellar, my technological abilities is not wonderful. So Stellar offered some great tech for not just me, but also customer support for our patrons. And just knowing that I wouldn't be the person that's getting called saying I can't get my computer working was a huge factor in my decision making in this.
So normally you guys do what, about 60 performances a year? Is that right? Or is it more than that?
No, 60 to 70. I mean, on a busy year, which is quite a few for a company of 16 dancers normally.
Yeah. And so what were when you started thinking about this and chose Stellar as a platform and everything, what was your idea about what you wanted to do in terms of content?
Well, we had to determine how we were going to come back to work as a company, because everyone started talking about pods, and having smaller groups working together was safer. And so we had gone down to 14 dancers this year for budget reasons. And then we split, one of my guys is injured, but anyway, we split into smaller pods. And so what we did was we started creating mini programs for each of our 3 pods. So that right away gave us 3 programs that we could film and then edit and present. Mm-hmm. And then another thing that the dancers were very excited about was creating their own dance films. And so we were able to get them camera equipment, and some of them are savvy with editing, and they were very excited to have this opportunity to express themselves in a different way. And so because of our audience's familiarity with our dancers as individuals, they were very excited to see what these people were going to come up with. And so the 4th program ended up being something that were the dancer films that they created themselves, our dancers. And so that ended up being our fall series that we could sort of sell as a package.
Yeah, you guys created this all access pass that gave was it all of them in one, or was it just because there was the Christmas ballets and then there was the fall ballets? How did the pricing and packaging work on that for you guys?
So yeah, with the fact that we were able to do 3 distinct performances opened up so many different possibilities for marketing, and that generally if someone were to go to the theater, they'd spend $50-$60 a ticket for 2 people, and to try to monetize that in one performance, one streaming, it didn't seem feasible. But by being able to put down 4 different distinct things, we can charge individual ticket prices or do a package price, which then more, got the revenue up closer to what we would be in theater. Mm-hmm. So to answer your question, so for the fall dance series, we have 4 distinct performances. We broadcast them 2 times each. Mm-hmm. So I would have someone sign up for like the Wednesday night series, and then they would get all 4 Wednesday nights and get a Sunday series the same way. Then for Christmas, because of scheduling, we had 15 performances, I believe. Mm. And again, 3 different pods, so 3 different distinct performances. But I wanted to give people flexibility. So what we did for that was, for the all access pass, I would give them a promo code that they could enter and then book their own tickets so they could see which performances they wanted.
And how did people react to the packages versus did some people go for the single tickets, and how did that break down? Were there more people interested in the package than the single tickets?
Well, our subscribers are used to packages, so they threw in for the packages. We had a price discount for packages. It was much less expensive to do it like that, so we had a bunch of people do that way. Of course, we have some donors that decided they buy each ticket individually and then make a donation on top of each ticket.
Yeah, I was gonna stop on that point, because we've seen this. We've seen other people do this very effectively, but perhaps nobody is more effectively than you guys. So that leverage is really high with online events, in my opinion. The difference between just what you're buying with the ticket and then the added donation. Walk us through how you guys thought about that and how you did it, because I thought it worked. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves, which you can feel free to share, but this is really something people can use.
Yeah, I'm very happy with how the donations have been going with Stellar. We always, when the subscriber subscribes, we ask if they would like to make their donation, and many of them do. And what's been great with Stellar is that usually with the subscribers, we reach them once a year. That's the only transaction we have. But with each of these programs, they have been resubscribing to each pass, and they've been making donations every single time they interface with Stellar. And in fact, with the All Access Pass, when I gave out the code that basically gave them comp tickets to choose which performances they want, they would still throw donations in on top of that every time you book an extra ticket. So yeah, the flexibility, it's not overbearing in terms of donations. It's just a quick screen that says, would you like to donate this amount? And it defaults to no thanks, so you don't get those problems of people like, I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that we defaulted to $1,000, but you guys were like, no, that's too much.
Right. Yeah. So
wait, how did my ticket go from $85 to $1,085? Trust us,
Wow.
it's fine. Yeah.
If you can make it happen, Jim.
But so the impact was pretty dramatic. I mean, so the fall series, which ran from November to early December. Gosh, I mean, I'm looking at the ticket revenue was 36,000, and then the donations added on another 17. So that's almost a 50% increase in your intake from the donations, which were totally just in line and a frictionless part of the experience.
People have just really loved the Stellar platform. I mean, literally, I just got an email from a patron last week, and his first sentence is, I just wanted to say, I am thrilled you found and are working with the Stellar website. They make ordering your tickets so easy to do. So, I mean, the feedback has been tremendous because, as Jason mentioned, we have an older demographic. So we wondered about the learning curve of having to learn a new platform. It was enough during the beginning of the pandemic to start teaching people how to use Zoom.
Sure.
Our development director was doing one-on-one tutorials with many of our patrons. And so to get them to learn this new system with Stellar, but you've continued to make tweaks that make it the interface just really, really seamless. And people have had no trouble with it. And if they do, your tech support is just right there. Your customer service is amazing. And Jason is also always available. And it's people they're patient and they're willing to try something new because they care about it. But it's been a remarkable tool for us. We didn't know how to budget for something like this. What kind of revenue could we generate? And so we had a very optimistic goal. We thought if we can get 100 people on each of our Wednesday series to pay $25 and so we were just hoping that we could reach 20,000 on our fall series. And
you got to 36,000.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And then
plus the donations.
Plus the donations.
You got to 54,000.
And that was also not a heavy ask, as you mentioned. It's not a heavy ask. It's like, hey, would you like to help Fune out? And I think people know that we're just trying to survive, and that's really our goal. A, stay in touch with our core audience, and B, just try to keep our whole team working and creating so that when we are back in theaters, we can just ramp right up and we're not then having to retrain an entire new team. That would just be impossible. Yeah. So this is really filling a gap immediately. And then, I mean, Jason, talk about Christmas. I mean, we just blew it out of the water. We even had a We even had a pool going inside inside our office about, okay, who was going to guess where we were going to end at. So
who got it right? Who won? And what were the guesses? I'm dying to know.
Okay, I'm glad you're not asking what the winner got, but anyway.
I do want to know that too. I'm sure everyone wants to know that.
You know
Break
what?
it down for us.
We kept changing the goal because I was fairly conservative. Jason was even more conservative than I was, but our managing director was just like, no, push, and she was like, we thought, okay, if we see 50, we'll be thrilled.
$50,000.
$50,000.
Jason, what did you think it was going to be? What was your conservative guess?
About 50.
50, okay.
You know, I'm looking at costs and everything and
Yeah.
checking the numbers, and that as long as we hit 50, we break even, we'll be good to go.
Yeah.
And it just kept going and going.
So, and Celia, yours was a little higher, but I'm assuming kind of in the same ballpark, the same 50 ballpark.
Well, I thought if we get 50 to 65,000, that would just be amazing. And then our managing director kept pushing, and she's like, no, six figures. So when we were approaching, our first internal pool was, at which performance are we going to hit 100,000? Because we realized we were going to hit 100,000.
Okay.
And so we said, okay, when are we going to do that?
You and Jason were hanging your heads in shame by this point.
No, we threw our hats up in the air. We were just like, no way, we're all over that.
Just a second of head hanging and then celebration.
Okay, yes, exactly. And so then it was how far beyond 100,000 are we going to get? So anyway,
and you
pretty
ended
exciting.
up selling over 3,200 tickets for the Christmas thing alone, which translated into $120,000 in revenue plus another 34,000 in donation revenue, so 155. So you guys missed by about 60. 3x is
3 times exactly.
That's great. I mean, and the exciting thing about this is about online events is that once you get a little bit of marketing success and it gets rolling, you just stand back and it works extremely well. And that's not easy to do. So what do you attribute the success of that to? Other than obviously awesome platform and great content, but from a marketing, from the point of view of a marketing plan or a project, what was the foundation of that success?
It's our patrons. I mean, we have such loyal patrons. Our renewal subscriber base is always in the, close to 90%. I mean, which is just amazing. So we just have this core group of audience that will follow us. They follow us when we're outdoors. We now know they follow us when we're online. In fact, this coming weekend, we're having our choreography showcase. And our goal for this week online is almost twice as much as we ever made in person for these performances.
Wow.
Yeah, so this has just been a huge marketing success, and we know if we can continue with it in some way in the theaters, we will still be able to generate this revenue.
Yeah.
Our first time out with Stellar with our fall dance series, we primarily advertised just to our patron base with e-blasts and social media. And so we do have a pretty dedicated following. Did we do a postcard for that, Jason?
No, we didn't.
We didn't even do any out of home. We did not even do a postcard. We didn't
even put $1 into Facebook or anything.
We just did e-blasts and just our internal posts with social media.
Okay.
So for Christmas, we did put some marketing funds behind it. We did do a postcard that went to all of our mailing, our base. And then we also did emails. And then we did some of our standard advertising that we would normally do for live performances.
Yeah. What's the typical sort of advertising?
Digital advertising and also some television. We did a little bit of cable TV. So this is what we tried for Christmas, and the reach was just incredible. And honestly, never in the midst of a pandemic did I think I was going to spend any of my energy or resources growing my audience. I mean, a pandemic is just about survival.
That's right.
But Jim, I mean, we've grown our audience. We had people tuning in for our Christmas ballet from Germany, from England, from Ireland. I mean, it was so exciting. And
I'm
this
so excited
interactive,
about that. That is great.
This interactive platform, people feel, you know, it's one thing if you sign up for something with an organization and they send you a link and you sit there at home by yourself and you're just tuning it in. Maybe it's 2 a.m, maybe it's 8 a.m over coffee, or who knows when you're watching it.
Right.
But this fact that you actually tune in together at a certain time, there is still this community aspect to it, which is really what the theater is. It's taking something in as a community, as a group, and you feed off of each other. And so as involved as you want to be, if you want to put chats in the chat box, you can do that. People now are tuning in and saying, hey, I'm tuning in from here, I'm tuning in from there, and they're putting in their chats in the chat box. We make it a requirement, and our dancers are more than willing to do it. If it's their pod that's performing, they're also chatting. So, I mean, when can you actually go to a performance and talk to the dancers that are performing?
Right.
And so there's comments happening, and then we stay online a little bit after the program ends, and people are still making comments in the chat box. And then you can even have your reactions if you want to get into the emojis and things like that. Or if you don't, turn it off. You have options. And so that aspect of that community feeling is really been a huge seller for me on Stellar. So kudos to all of you with the platform and the tweaks you've made to it. It's just really user friendly, and it's made it easy for us to still stay in touch with our audience.
Thank you so much. I mean, you know, the thing you said about building your audience during the pandemic, but that really means a lot to me, because, you know, when we decided to build Stellar back in May, we didn't know much about what was going to happen or where it was going, but we really did build that. We decided to move forward with that project, which is now an entire company for the organizations that we work with, for the colleagues in the industry who, you know, needed something for the pandemic. And as the end of the pandemic is now in sight, I'm just so thrilled at the idea that people are getting that this is not a pandemic Band-Aid. This is a new medium, and it's a new opportunity that we've never had before, and much need in this industry. Right? And I have a question for you, which is, did you do any analysis on what percentage of the people at the Christmas show were not from your existing customer base? Did you do any analysis of that, or had not been to an event before? I'm
No.
not sure. Yeah. It's interesting to look at, right?
Yes.
We haven't had a chance to look through all of that, but
Yeah.
I think we will. It is an interesting thing. And then just the other day, somebody saw our ad that we got from Gold Star and said, wow, I went to go check out your performance. Remember, Jason, that email that came in, and somebody just said, you've got a new fan. This was great.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, and you know, what I've heard is I've heard different stories about the impact of online events on fan base, and people have thrown some numbers around. I've heard numbers as high as 75% of people who were joining online events were new customers to a given organization, which is great. I mean, I don't think it's always that high, but if you think about that, right? Like if you have a show with thousands of people watching, which you guys did, and all of a sudden you're kind of like ingesting, you know, hundreds or thousands of new guys. It's a tremendous tool that allows you to escape the tyranny of, you know, physical space, right? Like they don't have to be in the Bay Area to come see it.
Exactly. And it's also great because we're always going to be able to present works, because we're establishing a library of things that we can also bring back by popular demand for those that might have missed last fall's performances. We could show that again when the dancers are on an off period, because the dancers can't work 52 weeks out of the year. They need downtime to rest their bodies and what have you. But it still makes it possible for us to continue to present. That's
so awesome. I just want to say, in case anyone has a question, put it in the chat, which, as Sally was just mentioning, is an important part of the Stellar experience. So if you have a question for Sally or Jason, just drop it in the chat. I should be able to see it and ask it on your behalf. So please do that. This is just so exciting. I mean, when you guys contemplate, so when do you think, just the question that I'm asking everybody that I talk to these days is, when do you anticipate being, I know you don't know, you know, the way the law is going to break down to the mandates, but when do you anticipate in-person events restarting for SMUIN?
Jason, you want to take that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So our thoughts is we're going to do some more outdoor performances in the fall, again, to film and put online with Stellar, and then in theater we are pushing for our Christmas ballet to be back in theater. So
Nice.
November is our goal.
Nice. Very good. Very good. That's excellent. One of the things that's coming up as well as a topic more and more with me is people asking, like, how do I approach the idea of a hybrid event where it's in person and there are people in the theater and it's available as an online event? Is that something you guys have thought about yet?
We've thought about it and have not come up with a solution yet.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a learning process for all of us. I will have some thoughts to share with people as we get a little closer to that time on how to approach that. I think they're extremely viable. One of the wonderful things about a hybrid event is that 90% of the costs of an event, right, will be essentially funded by the in-person event. So the profitability of the hybrid portion of that will be even better. So let's see. Somebody's asking if you have considered meet and greet or other VIP options. Have you done any of that? People have done that. Have you guys done any of that? Other than just having the dancers available during the show and after the show?
No, absolutely. Yeah. After our fall performances, each one included a Zoom Q&A with the artistic department and the dancers. So every performance, you could talk with them about what they were doing. Our development team has also put a lot of pre-show events. We have a local chocolate factory nearby, and they organize a chocolate tasting before one of our events for Valentine's Day. So they shipped out the chocolates and then had the experts, and there was a little Zoom call there to do that. So yeah, we're absolutely before and after performances trying to get in touch with people.
So here's the question that I'm sure is on everyone's mind now. Can you smell the chocolate factory from where you are normally? And also, do they bring you chocolates on a regular basis just to be good neighbors?
Well, that was the impetus for us getting together with them.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Well, we're coming to the end of our time. I just want to say how much fun I've had talking to you guys. I love hearing how you've put the platform to use, and how I'm so thrilled and gratified that it's had all that different kinds of value to you. So just thanks for that, and thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having us, Jim.
Yeah.
It's great, and we're glad that we could share some of this with people looking for a platform. We're just so thrilled that we have found a way to stay in contact with our patrons. It's not only for our patrons, but for us. I mean, our dancers are so excited to know that people are still watching them perform and they're missing us. And it's just been really an incredible solution for us.
Well, I'm very bullish on the idea of Smooin having a worldwide audience. I really am, because and I think about this a lot, right? One of the things that online events does, let's just say somewhere in the world, and maybe it's you guys, there is the greatest small dance company in the world, right? Like somebody is that, and maybe it's you, right? Don't you think the greatest small dance company in the world deserves a big audience? I happen to think it does. It deserves a very large audience all over the world. And so I don't know. I think that's phase 2 for you guys, is obviously continue to just nail it for your existing audience and then grow it by 1,000 times. That's what I want for you guys.
That would be great. It's been a while since we toured to Italy. We've been twice, and we've done touring domestically, but we'd be up for that. We'd be up for that.
And you can do it through online events too. That's the other thing that's worth saying, right? Yeah, that's
exactly
right. Well, thank you guys so much. It's been a lot of fun. Is there anything you'd like to just offer that people that are tuning in, obviously our colleagues in the live entertainment industry, any sort of final thoughts for them about what they should be thinking about when it comes to online events and how to make them work for you?
My thing would just be, don't be scared. Just do it. As I mentioned, Stellar's tech support, specifically Richard, has been fantastic. I couldn't have done any of this without him.
He's sitting right there.
Okay. But yeah, he was just so hands-on. He was there anytime I needed him, and it was a huge support. And yeah, just give it a try. Awesome.
Well, Salih Fushil, Jason, Aaron, thank you for joining us from the Smooin Contemporary Dance Theater. We love you guys. Have enjoyed working with you for these 18 years. Oh my gosh. But and
Amazing.
hopefully a lot more. It's something to look forward to online and in person. So thank you
Terrific.
again.
Thank
Want to
you.
remind everybody, thanks everybody for joining us today. Quick recap of what I said before. We're going to fork this expert chat series. One is going to be under the Gold Star name, and it will be about getting back to in-person events in the venue, and what we're going to try to bring in experts that can help navigate those treacherous waters over the next few months. And on the other side, the Stellar program will be about, just like you heard today, success stories for online events, how to do it, some of them on Stellar, some of them beyond Stellar, anything we can do for you to help you be successful with your online events and the awesome new medium that online events represent. So thank you for joining me today. I hope you guys got as much out of it as I did. I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot, and it was great to be with you today. So thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.